David L. is an expert of malware reverse engineering. He's a malware researcher at CyberArk. He likes also to dig into the story behind malware. And he's presenting something interesting that is a little bit how the cheating and anti-cheating systems have evolved through the years. And doing his research, he also found an info stealer in a $35 a month cheating system. And so he will tell us the story about that is named Behind the Cheats, a tale about the greedy cheat developer. So give a warm welcome to David L.
Thank you. So I'm really excited to speak to you about a very close topic to my heart, which is Behind the Cheats, a tale about a greedy cheat developer. We're going to talk about two different topics today. The first one is going to be a blog post that I recently published about the history of game cheats, everything from the oldest style of computer games and cheats and stuff like that, up to the newest and the latest cheats out there, and how game developers protect against those and all that nuances. And next we're going to talk about a cheat developer that we caught that was really, really greedy, and hopefully after that we're going to have a little bit of time for bonuses and hopefully some time for demos. So why should you even care, and why should you even listen to me? After all, I am just a random dude. But my name is David. I'm a malware researcher for CyberArk, and I've been in the field for malware for close to 9 years now. For pretty much in the same amount of time, I've been doing game development. That's the way I got into computers in general. And so much so, I helped manage a massive 10,000-member community on Discord, where I taught a lot of new game developers how to do all that stuff. And when that community closed, I also became an indie game studio founder, where some of the people who were left behind essentially wanted to start a company, and it's just publishing a demo right now. I think 2 days ago, yeah, they published a new demo for the game, but it's not a place to plug it in. And a fun fact about myself, I'm a massive foodie, and so much so that I decided to go one step further, and I actually went to culinary school. So about 2 months ago, I finished a professional cooking school. So that's that. So let's start. As I said before, a brief history of game cheating, and we're going to talk about the perspective of both a cheater and a cheat developer, and the perspective of game developer, and how to protect against all the different attacks. So, with a show of hands, how many of you here ever cheated in a game? Good to see I'm in a very good spot, and good people. But yeah, most people know probably this kind of cheat, where you see a lot like a console left behind in games like Sims, or cheat codes in other games, or just random codes on a keyboard. Those are usually left behind by game developers. I don't really consider them as cheating, because they're not breaking terms of service. But in multiplayer games, they're not even a problem, because they're usually guarded by permissions. But my favorite story when it comes to this kind of cheat is Grand Theft Auto. And my favorite moment was every time we were playing as kids, one teenager on the computer, the moment he wasn't looking, all the guys just automatically tried to write this code and explode the car he took 3 hours to find, because he really wanted the color purple. Who knows? It was always funny, but always led to some physical altercations. But that's the only way to protect against those, I guess. So let's talk about something that actually breaks terms of service, and that's local file modification. So things like changing configuration files, game saves, maps, textures, obviously really effective in multiplayer, in single-player games. But I wanted to check if it's used in multiplayer, or is there any good examples. And for that, I want to bring it back to 2006. And hopefully it's going to be a little bit nostalgic for most of you, as World of Warcraft is still amazing. I just came back to it, I want to say a month ago. So in 2006, a new raid was released with an update. It's called AQ40. I'm never going to be able to pronounce the full name. But as most of you know, raid takes a lot of time, and it's 2006. So no Discord, no communication systems. It takes a really long time, but it has some great loot. And to emphasize how big it is, this is the map. And you start from the top, and you go all over this little maze, which is really difficult and very vertical, apparently. And you need to find a boss at the end. And here comes our hero of the story, let's say, a clan called Overrated. They asked, is it possible to jump from point A all the way to point B without doing this whole long-ass maze? And the thing they found is that the brown area just below the letter A is actually the roof of area B. So they did something very cool, and on all 40 clients of the people who were playing the raid, they modified the game. And they also recorded in 2006. Hopefully, I know it's kind of dark, but hopefully it will be visible enough. Yeah, the game hasn't changed that much from this. But for those of you who ever played the game, this is not normal. There are no floors right now on the map itself, and the purple blob just over there is actually the boss spawn point, the last boss spawn point. And somehow Blizzard decided that they will not check against, I don't know, progression through the level or walking through floors. So they were the fastest clan out there, while second place took about 1.5 hours. They took about 15 minutes. So obviously it was a massive uproar of the community, and Blizzard learned that validation is key when it comes to all of this. So they validated the maps and textures and all of that on load, and Steam and stuff like that right now also do validation of game executables. But also they added some player action validation. And they changed their system from being client-centric to becoming a server-centric system, which was a massive step up for security. And that's that. Now, this is fun, this is cool, but let's talk about something that actually requires us to touch the memory, because after all, most of the cheats are memory-based. And for level 2, I wanted to give a special shout out to something that is highly effective in single player, still sometimes again works in multiplayer, which is changing specific variables. And specifically, I'm talking about cheat engine. Good. So essentially, I call cheat engine a correlation finder instead of a cheat engine, although it has a lot of other features right now. And for those who haven't had a chance to play with this, the way to cheat is to find a specific value that you care about. So for example, the amount of money you have. And you scan the memory of the address space of the game itself for this value. You change it, and then you scan for the new value based on the list you had before. And you're going to repeat that until you have like 2 or 3 left behind values, and then you can just change them. And for this specifically, and yeah, special effort for the loading screen logo, I developed a little game for us, if I can see my mouse, very creatively named My Project. And this is essentially a small little demo of a maze runner. I got really bored at one day, so I added a lot of lighting effects. But essentially, we have 100 coins, and we need to get to the treasure at the end. And obviously, if we go all of this, not enough coins, obviously. But if we restart instead, in real time, we're going to do this in demo. Open up Cheat Engine, and we select the memory, the actual game. There you go, it's the first one. It's kind of hard to do with it not being on my main screen. We're going to scan for the value of 100, which is the value of the coins, and we're going to get back about 3,500 values. And as I said before, this is a correlation matcher, so the moment we change the value, we can scan this list again for 101. And we're going to get 2 values. Anyone wants to give me a value to change this to, which is hopefully over 1,000, because I had 5,000. There we go. We have free tickets to get some extra beer. And as simple as that, Cheat Engine, I don't think we need to give more explanation about this amazing tool. But the problem is, still a lot of indie game studios don't check against changes on the client side and mismatches with the server. So if you ever had a chance to play a new game that is multiplayer, or in Unity game, because there's a lot of problems in synchronization there, it's very simple and you can achieve a lot of interesting moments. But this also can be used against other stuff, like security vendors, where you have flags and you can try to find correlations like that and scan for values. Cheating is just an amazing tool, and I was able to bypass some security solutions with that before. And we don't need this because demagogues were nice today. Okay, so it was fun changing values, right? But now let's do some actual cheating. The best cheats require some added information or to parse information that is built in the actual game. So we need to somehow access the memory space, change the logic, add some logic of our own. Cheats like aimbots, ESPs, which are like you can see through walls and see all the enemies. Simple as that. But it only sounds simple, because the moment you try to dig in the actual game engine, you need to actually look at the different memory space, the addresses, and the structures, and then you understand that any game engine is a massive living organism, essentially, with over like millions of lines of code and very complex situations. But I do want to give you like a generic overview of how the memory works. And in most game engines, you have something that's called a game object, or is essentially a game object, which houses a object that is managed by the game engine, and it has a couple of values. It has a transform, which is the position, the rotation, and the scale of the actual item. It has additional components that are built into the game engine, so like a collider, which is the shape, or the render, which is the texture and the colors. And you can also have a couple of extra scripts like movement controllers and whatever you want, which all need to follow a basic formula and a basic interface of a initialize, which gets run at the start point and the creation of the actual object, and then an update, which gets run on something called a tick. So if you ever had a lag when it comes to your computer being slow, it's essentially the update functions not being able to run fast enough. Now, also, over time, game engines became easier to use and easier to develop on, and they added a couple of on-click events and listeners, and became very, very up-to-date with the modern standards. But I do want to showcase a very generic overview of an aimbot, and essentially show you how cheat developers work with that, and also how it's possible to protect against this. So an aimbot is essentially a hook into the create and shoot bullet procedure. When a mouse gets clicked, we get the gun direction, and that specific direction is then instanced as the direction of the bullet. And if we want to add an aimbot, we need to add a specific function of ourselves called getEnemyHeadDirection, because why not? And we need to hook it. And it sounds simple on paper, because after all, hooking memory is something most of you probably have done before. But Unity, for example, isn't as simple. It's written in Mono.NET. It has a lot of convoluted structures, or it uses IL to CPP, which is their own proprietary method to convert intermediate language to C++. And instead of going through, and we honestly don't have enough time to go through all the memory like craziness there, instead I want to show you a very nice tool called a melon loader. Which you can just add to any Unity game out there, and you can add your own mod easily. Essentially use side loading techniques to add a piece of code to the outer space. And those mods, which in this case is going to be a aimbot, is going to be a melon. That's their name for mods. So I actually made, and we need to say thank you for Legal for forcing me to use my own game instead of a readily available one, again with the demo. But I had to develop my own game to allow us to cheat. And at the start, you will see that there's a massive console popping up. This is the melon loader behind the scenes. And now, the game is very simple. Let's wait for it to load. There's like additional things you can add. You can inspect the elements of the game engine. You can change and play with all this stuff, including games that have multiplayer. But As you can see, a very simple game. You need to just shoot it. I spent way too much time with the particle effects. But I am using a trackpad. Not fun, not easy to do. And essentially, I implemented all the logic for an aimbot just by pressing a keybind here. And now the aiming is locked in on every apple here. And we can just do this. I love the light show. And then just extras, because why not? Spent way too much on this. Okay. We have this. And again, demo gods were nice today. Thank you for that. But it is kind of simple to detect. Melon loader specifically is a side loading technique, so a game can just scan the repository and see if there's like additional DLLs there. The real cheats use an injector, and obviously injection of code requires memory address access, and I spent a lot of effort on this animation, so this looked pretty cool. But you need an external injector, and a lot of cheats are essentially that, just an injector, or a lot of times you need to buy your own injector separately for the cheats, which was common a couple of years ago. And obviously this was done on the user space. And here comes the genius part of anti-cheat solutions and game developers in general. They said this is a memory address, memory access. So why not develop a kernel driver to detect every access on the game, and using a lot of very complicated logic, understand if this access is a valid one or it's invalid. And they can block it or do whatever they want. Now, this logic isn't simple. This logic requires a lot of effort from the game developers if they want to develop their own, or the anti-cheat solutions, which is just crazy, which means a lot of attack surface is going to come from this space. So much so that in 2022, a very, very good exploit of a privilege escalation was abused against a game called the Genshin Impact. And Genshin has 61 million players, and a ransomware just ran against it and by it, which was just crazy. And the fact is, this is just one game. The big anti-cheat solutions have hundreds of millions of installs easily, if not billions right now. And this is from 2018, where the famous EasyAntiCheat was bought by Epic Games, and they had over 100 million as clients. So if you want to go and research this and find a vulnerability, that might be very, very cool, because there are no publicly known CVEs right now, apparently, which is odd. And I tried to take a very quick look at the driver, and essentially the first 4 lines of code, they just jump into a middle of a operation and break debuggers and disassemblers, which is very weird for anti-cheat solutions. So I am sure that if you want to go, and it's basically like a call for action for everyone here who does vulnerability research. If you find a code execution here, this is just a game breaker for most of the world, pretty much. Now, I've talked enough about anti-cheat solutions, but are we cheat-proof yet? This sounds still like a very, very good system. Essentially, they load on start right after Windows, but sadly, it's not it. So the strongest cheat right now, and the strongest method of cheating, is something called DMA, direct memory access. The general logic is, if the anti-cheat is running on our computer where we game at, why not cheat on a second computer? And that's exactly that. They use a hardware-based card called DMA, which costs a lot of money, and they access the RAM directly without going through the operating system, without needing to go through all that mumbo jumbo of kernel-level anti-cheats. They parse the information, they do whatever they need. In this example, this is a overlay cheat where you can see all the enemies. And then you combine using a video combiner, and you output to the screen. Now, strong, but expensive. A very simple DMA card costs about $300. An expensive one, which is actually good, costs $700. If you want to be actually undetectable, you need to use a custom firmware, which either you create yourself or pay $40 because you want something that's not popular. You want some video? add a HDMI fusor, which not only costs a lot, is notorious for just spontaneously just combusting and exploding. There's a lot of videos of that. There was one seller, a Chinese seller, that was trying to create a demo video, and while he was doing that specific demo video, the box just started just smoking up. And you can see the video cutting. A different box was placed, and then he was just continuing like nothing. And if you want an aimbot, you can still do an aimbot here, but you need an external USB controller, which you can change and emulate essentially the mouse. So you have input of a mouse and input of the cheat computer, and you can change and jiggle the mouse however you want, or send some keyboard information and keyboard strokes or whatever. So the bare minimum is about $900 or $1,000. So this kind of style of cheating is mainly done for profit when it comes to big tournaments. And anti-cheat solutions and game developers don't usually care about that much. But this can also be used very effectively for us as security researchers. So for example, a honeypot or a sandbox that is essentially impossible to detect because we just access the memory directly without a software component and without needing any virtual machine. So probably some of you noticed that we're missing level 3. And level 3 is trainers and bots. And this is exactly a perfect cameo for the double-dipping cheat developer that we caught red-handed. So this story was very random for me. It started just on a very, very nice normal Sunday where a friend of mine from the cheating community, which I've spoken to, I want to say twice before, sends me this message. It looks like you might have been a virus. Instead of cooking up trouble, try cooking up a veggie tofu stir fry. I wish I would have made this up. This is a real message. And he sent me a cheat that he tried to analyze, but he failed because he wasn't able to do it properly. He just didn't have all the setup. But this was something related to called EFT. So I guess most of you here don't know what EFT is, because I was in the same position. And apparently it's Escape from Tarkov. So a tactical shooter, survival game, very popular, has about 40 million copies sold. Apparently, like every game out there, still in beta, which is okay, fine. But Evolved Aim is, or at least was, the most popular and the main cheat of its kind. And it's about, I want to say, half a year ago, where it had automatic auction house trading. So while you sleep, it's going to get some money for you. And you can also train some repetitive skills. And my favorite comment when it actually published this research is, oh, these are the guys running naked on the beach every night. So apparently that did this. And also it had like a very low risk of detection, because instead of injecting code and doing all that risky stuff, they did a lot of image recognition, and they used the keyboard and mouse emulation to just access the game. And just based a lot of talks with admins and other players, I estimate in the clientele was about 1,500. Which, please remember this number, because it's crazy, because this cheat isn't free. This is a $35 a month cheat, which had a lot of clients. And just if you think about those clients buying this once and saying, okay, that's not enough, and that's not for me, that's bad, it's still a lot of money. And now, as any sane malware researcher in the world would do, I actually analyzed the software itself. And first I discovered this is written in Python 3.11 to be exact, which has its own problems, but it had like 4 threads. 2 were benign. Those are the actual cheat itself, which is okay. But also it came with a couple of extra features. So it came with a 6-page instruction PDF, which was very interesting to see how to set it up and how to properly work with. It had the ability to detect virtual machines. It just told you, okay, you're running on a virtual machine, which is good to know. It had the ability to detect memes and take some screenshots. And that's the point I got interested. So I assume everyone here has the same problem, but my colleagues sent me a lot of memes, like way too much, and I need a way to filter them down. And I haven't thought about how to actually detect them, so let's try to reverse engineer their code and see how they did it. So the meme detector is actually under a class called anti-VM, which, okay, suspicious. But still, I'm very interested. I'm getting, the moment I opened this code and finally was able to see this Python code, I got like two memes already, just an overload. But then I opened the actual function. You see, the problem is this is Python 3.11. And any tool out there right now, it could be Uncompile 6 or PyCDC, they all have the same problem, which they're updated up to Python 3.8. And if you actually want to analyze this, you need to go and look at the bytecode, which for that specific function was over 1,000 lines of code. And instead of forcing you to analyze all of this with me, let me just show you the strings of this function and see if you can guess what it is. Okay. So I'll give you the answer of our memes are actually an information stealer. And not only just a big information stealer, it has so much support for browsers. This was pretty much, I think, one of the only times I saw something this thorough and actually gave me browser names I never saw before, like the Uran. And okay, fine, it was the very Russian and interesting spot. But not only that, they actually stole information from Discord. So if you ever had an app of Discord installed and you pay for Nitro, Discord stores the payment information on the disk, very easy to access and extract. And on top of that, they went through every MetaMask extension for these browsers, and they collected all the information. So the wallets are also like collected and stored. And okay, this is an information stealer. It always has two parts. First part is going to be the collection. Now, where is it going to be sending it to? And after doing all of their stuff, they also like get a list of files in a couple of directories. They zip it all up into a file called scans.zip, and then they upload it to something called Mega. So at that point, I had seen Mega before, but I had no clue how they would connect. I hoped it would be an API call. But no, it was a username and password, which I will not show because legal, but it's essentially a code here hidden, like obfuscated, very simple to actually look at. And Mega is something, a file hosting service hosted in New Zealand, similar to Dropbox for anyone who hasn't had a chance to look at it. So my favorite part is all the memes are now at Lord of the Rings. Now, okay, fine, information stealer, nothing that crazy. I wouldn't be standing here talking to you about this just because someone put an information stealer. There's a whole new thread here, like another one, which was one of the more creative pieces of code I saw before. So this whole function, this whole thread is just like condense the if statements, but this is the whole logic. And it starts obviously with the decryption of like a couple of variables. And if we take a look a little bit further, we can see this is a SQL database, which is hosted on AWS, tied to their own account. Yeah, they made a command and control server just through SQL commands, and they had the key is a license, and the value was the actual command. It had 4 commands: stop, remove, status, and delete. And you would think stop is a command of stopping the actual virus, or stopping the operation and not being quiet. And this is like an example of the SQL database, if it was there. But no, stop is actually my favorite command, because how I envision it is the cheat developer saying, okay, this specific cheater needs to go to sleep. And the best way to force him to go to sleep is to close his game. And this is one of the ways the whole cheat got discovered, the whole malware is discovered, as cheaters were playing the game and suddenly the game would crash. And it happened to the actual admin also, and there was a massive feud between the cheat developer and the admin because his private information was leaked and his credentials and screenshots, and that's why I got this file from the first place. But who made all of these things? Who was responsible for the meme collector? And as you can see, and you saw before, there were like 2 strings of Mythical and CJ. Those trusted devices are devices that are blacklisted from the malware. If you run it on those on devices with this username and computer name, and the infrastructure won't work. And again, this is tied to a guy called Mythical. This is a new screenshot, so he was already banned, but he wasn't then. He was the biggest seller in that specific form. And he also had a Discord for support. And this support Discord was very active up to the point where he got discovered cheating, stealing from his clients. At that point, every single big vendor just banned him. All the clients moved to other places and got a refund, which is very, very karma. And hopefully this guy won't be able to continue working on these cheats, because now at least the community knows that even paid cheats are actually malicious or could be malicious. Now, that's fine, but who really cares, right? It's only one game, 14 million copies sold, 1,500 cheaters, whatever. But the fact is, this, as you know, is not an uncommon practice. Cheaters are everywhere. We love to cheat because we love to play the game unfair, because who doesn't want to win? And specifically in this game, the player age was between 20 to 25, which means adults working. And due to the COVID epidemic, we have a lot of hybrid work and bring your own device. So this meant actually that some employers were actually at risk. And one of the things I saw on the forum was, hey, I've been gaming on my company laptop. What could happen now? That was a very, very interesting comment. Now, again, this is just one example. The industry is massive, and the cheating impact is also huge. And as you can see, this is just one thing. Now, for a couple of conclusions I want to give you is, even those who are not affected by cheats, who don't cheat themselves, are affected. It could be inside of the game, but it also reflects on the price of the games, as game developers need to either have an in-house team for developing and maintaining a very strong anti-cheat solution, or they need to buy it from EasyAntiCheat or any other massive company out there. And they can also pose dangers to organizations, so please don't let users cheat on their laptops when it comes to work. Or at least make sure they are not playing with very, very bad cheats. And obviously, kernel-level anti-cheats are awesome, but as I said before, with the example of Genshin Impact and with the call for action that hopefully a couple of you guys would go after, those cheats and anti-cheat solutions are a massive threat vector, and a single exploit in them could mean world glory, pretty much, for a researcher that finds a exploit in them. And obviously, never trust cat people. So this talk and this blog post got quite a wide appreciation on the public, and collected a couple of snippets. It was here in Italy. I think it was the first group that actually published about this, which is very, very fun. I loved that fact. A place in Italy, in France, a couple of places in Israel, and my favorite part, except Reddit, which was just a shit show of all the cheaters saying, "Why did you tell them now they are gonna move to better cheats?" Was a YouTube content creator where he actually read through the whole article, and for me, essentially like ASMR, to fall to sleep with this thing. But he read through all of this and gave his own points about it. And yeah. If you have any questions.